Hi friends, CD Mangaka here, doing something I haven't done in a long time, post content on my own YouTube channel. Been running around doing a bunch of other things for various fighting game scenes out in Colorado. So wanted to take some time though to actually do some personal content, personal in the sense of it's just me up here. And this is like a talk piece that I've been thinking about for a while, so I call this a Mangaka's Musings. And this is basically like the current state of the net play environment for fighting games going forward. So it's nearly the end of 2021. Holy shit, how is it almost 2022? And we're looking at this world where we're getting like new releases of fighting games that are having Rollback Netcode added in. We're getting like, huge mainstay series like King of Fighters having Rollback Netcode being added in. We're getting new titles from like Arc System Works, where there's DNF Duel that is having Rollback Netcode. Just got announced like earlier today, something that we were kind of worried about. And as Cloud 805 stated in a tweet, so that's to you, Cloud, we're going into this era where we don't have to like fight so hard to get rollback into fighting games. It's just like accepted as its reality that by publishers that if you want to sell more copies of your game, you need rollback netcode, which I think is a huge thing, because when I think fighting game developers for too long have really only focused on the offline world of fighting games. Like, let's be honest, like the balance that takes place in the games revolves around like the mainstay offline version. Like Dragon Ball FighterZ, for example, my main game, its system mechanics aren't balanced around like the crazy low input delays that you can get on PC. It's balanced around the native 4 frames of input delay that are on the PlayStation 4 offline version. That's what the system mechanics are balanced around. Let's just be upfront with that one. They really haven't really cared for online events because they pump their money and their support into the offline stuff, the majors, the world tours and things like that. It wasn't until COVID-19 shut the world down and killed the offline fighting game community for better part of a year and a half, and in some places still has it hibernating. So to kind of twist my words a little bit, the focus was really just about offline, and online was kind of just like an afterthought. It's like, oh, we don't really need worry about that one. Like delayed and base netcode is fine for like Japan, arguably, but even then there's plenty of issues with it. But it's like, we care about offline. Online's like whatever, right? And this is a theory that I've had for a while, maybe a hope, if you will. But I was always like of the impression that like COVID-19 to the FGC in terms of the online play world was like a monkey's paw. For years, we've had people be massive figureheads of the community, Sageham, Maximilian Dude, for example, various others, advocating for rollback netcode. It's like, you guys need to be putting this into your fighting games. Like, you need to care about the netcode. You need to put this up through here. And it wasn't until that fighting game developers got confronted with the reality of, oh, what happens if we go to a world where offline, the thing that we care about, just can't happen and it doesn't exist? A lot of farces, actually. If you guys have ever tuned into any bit of like the World Tour thing, or like the regional championships of Dragon Ball FighterZ back in Season 3, you might remember the very first week of the West Coast where Chris G, who was invited to it, quit. He straight out quit after the first week of play, and he cited the netcode. He said, playing in this ridiculous frame delay is stupid. It's a waste of my time. I'm paraphrasing him a lot. The gist of it was he quit. He said, fuck this netcode. I'm out. That's basically paraphrasing it and maybe putting a couple of words into his mouth, but that's the overall gist of it. And it was just kinds of like backlash, and we kind of just memed on the netcode, the community as a whole. And ever since then, we've been yelling at developers, rollback netcode. You need rollback netcode going on forward. We need to have this as a mainstay feature, because fighting games, there's no reason for fighting games to lag behind the online competition. As a developer, it should have been very clear that if you want fighting games to reach like a if you want to grow fighting games, you have to consider that a lot of people don't go out in person. They don't go out to locals. Some of them don't have the opportunity to. Some of them might have a local that's 2 hours away and they can't make that trip every week. Some people might have just so much business in their lives, or be so busy that the only outlet they have is online play. And if your online play can't compete with like first-person shooters or like Fortnite or any of like those huge online games out there, Final Fantasy 14, then you're not going to capture those audiences because they're going to boot up your delay-based netcode. They're going to have a horrible time with inconsistent lag and all kinds of buggy matches. I say buggy, not in terms of like graphics term, but just like whack. They're not going to stick around for it. And Arc System Works was already a little bit ahead of the curve with Guilty Gear Strive. Before COVID had taken over the world, they were asking people like, hey, how important is rollback netcode in our next version of Guilty Gear Strive? In their player surveys when they were doing like their early tested majors, and mostly everybody was like, yo, you need to do this. Arc System Works, you need to do this. Like, you will sell so much of this goddamn game if you do it. And now when we look at the impact of that on fighting games as a whole, or on the Guilty Gear Strive series, or Guilty Gear series, Guilty Gear Rev 2, the predecessor to Strive, according to like VG Hubs, sold like 21,000 units across the world, right? I don't know how accurate that is, how up to date that is, but that's like the numbers that we're looking at. Arc System Works announced back in like July that Guilty Gear Strive sold 500,000 copies. Like, that's like over 200% increase in terms of like the sales of like this series, a series that had its strong community, but now it's like grown massively. And currently, like concurrent players on Steam, it's sitting like over 30,000, beating out the likes of Tekken 7 and Street Fighter 5, these huge names and mainstays in the fighting game community from the Western worlds. I don't know why, I don't say from is wrong. Those are Japanese publishers for the Western world. You know, Street Fighter, that's like a household name almost, like even in America. So that's like one of like the big names up there. So with rollback netcode, almost like off of that alone, as well as, you know, like great character design, hey, there's a good game in there too. Like, this has been able to actually expand the horizons of it. And now we're getting like fighting games that have had new releases, and we've seen other fighting game scenes like Samurai Showdown, where I don't even know if that game's a scene anymore. Is that game even alive? I know we do this meme on Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. I know that the community is still strong. I had a really good showing at CEO, but like I don't know if Samurai Showdown even exists anymore. Let's be real at the moment. And I mean, if it's out there, fans, please let me know. But we saw these games get released, and then pretty much once online play became like the only thing we could have, those games basically died and fell off. And only like the games that still got like active support from the community or had like just super passionate fan bases have really like stood mainstay. Dragon Ball FighterZ being one of them, because Arc System Works and Bandai Namco have continued to offer support for the game and do events for the game. And now when we see this too, we're seeing older titles finally go back and get rollback implemented. The Blaze Blue or BlazBlue series with Central Fiction and BB Tag, it's smashing its like lifetime player base ever on Steam with the addition of the rollback netcode that they're testing over there. And there's going to be resurgence of those games because people are going to be able to play that with anybody from like all around the world or like just across the country even. We're really into this new era of fighting games, and this was all like due to COVID-19 and what it put the community into. It was the monkey's paw, truly, of fighting game players online. We've been fighting for years saying, yo, man, I just wish every new fighting game release had rollback netcode. And that Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta paw curled up, and COVID-19 broke out. It broke out and it spread across the world and shut it down. And fighting game developers said, oh shit, we live in this world now where online play is the only thing that we have. And our game, you know, games aren't doing well and people are not playing our games anymore. What do we do about this? And Arc System Works was just right there at the right time, having the right idea at the right moment, and they said, oh my god, we just had the best-selling Guilty Gear, like, by a wide margin ever, and we're still selling units. This is the power of rollback. I need this in every game I've ever made. I need to go back and I need to do all this stuff here. And other fighting game developers have picked up on it too. So if there is one positive thing out of all of this hardship that we've had, and how difficult life has been because of COVID-19 for the FGC, it definitely has to have been the fact that I don't know if we would have had this accelerated implementation and acceptance of rollback community by publishers and fighting games without COVID-19. I genuinely don't. But the fact that we live in this world now where we don't have to fight for it. It's just a mainstay feature. It's what's going to be selling games. It's what gets people excited. And the developers are fully aware of it. And they're saying, yo, let's get this out. Let's go back and add this into old games. The fact that we live in this timeline now is truly a beautiful thing.